Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Lily's Little Life Corner. Today we have a short episode, but it is an update episode because there's been a couple of updates that I wanted to touch on. Let us all, though, take a moment to take a deep breath and recognize that everything will be okay. I have posted on my TikTok. If you don't follow me on TikTok, it's linked in my link tree and you can click that link. But I posted on my TikTok that I think everything will work out in the end. Everything will work out as it's meant to. And I think we need to have faith, not only in ourselves, but in our community. So I wanted to take a moment to remind you guys to take a second to breathe in, breathe out, and have faith in yourself, have faith in the community, and everything will work out as it's meant to. And I trust that things will go in the right direction. But anyway, as you can see, I'm filming this at night and I have zero makeup on. And because of that, if you're watching on YouTube, you might be noticing that my face is looking a little asymmetrical. It's just how my face is. Thankfully, I'm able to conceal it a little bit with makeup, but there's nothing I can really do about it much except like massages and whatnot, but that is not the point of this podcast. Also my voice is a little bit dry. I haven't talked about like what I do for work, but as you guys know, I have a day job. And then I do this podcast kind of on the side. And sorry for getting off topic, but I guess this is also kind of like an update on me. I don't know. I'm going to try to make this episode just a little bit longer because I feel like this episode is only going to be 20 minutes long, but they are important updates to the stories that I have shared on here. So that's why I wanted to do this update episode before we move on to the next chunk of stories that I have prepared for you guys. But anyway, as I was saying, I work outside and I am not protected from the elements. So last week, 8 days ago, almost exactly from the moment that I'm filming this, I got rained on pretty heavily and my pants were soaked. And this isn't even like an exaggeration. It literally looked like I dipped my pants in a tub of water. That's how soaked they were. And I was woefully unprepared for that weather. I was joking to my mom that Sunday, and I was like, haha, I should get like one of these ponchos for the rain. I think that's what they're called. I don't really know. But, I was like joking with her. I was like, maybe I should get one of these. It came back to bite me, you know? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I got rained on. And in that moment, I was regretting not buying a poncho. I was like, man, I really should have bought it. But yeah, I mean, my socks were soaked. I had tennis shoes on. When I left for work in the morning, it was just like a little drizzle. And then, not even 10 minutes into my shift, it starts pouring rain. So much so that one of the people that I see kind of on a daily basis, she was like, here, borrow my umbrella. And then she let me inside her car, just kind of while we waited. And so that was good. Otherwise, I'm like 1,000% sure I would have died of hypothermia because it was also very, very cold. So that's why my voice has been struggling a little bit. My immune system has been struggling a little bit these past few weeks, but I'm recovering. So that's what's good. Anyway, I have to pull my phone out for this one. So let's get into the episode. Actually, before we get into the episode, I do just want to share my normal kind of disclaimers, which is that I am not a psychologist. I'm just a psychology enthusiast. And also, all of these are just my opinions. And I might not be qualified to give some of them, but I do try to do my research anyway. But because this is going to be an update episode, there's not really much research that needs to be done except for the things that were updated in. Does that make sense? The very first update has to do with Mayo Mom, which is the very first podcast episode that I ever uploaded, and it got like over 1,000 views, which I was not expecting at all. So thank you guys so much for all the comments, all the likes, and everything. I really, really appreciate it. But if you guys don't know, Mayo Mom is a TikTok mom, or I should more accurately say a mom of a TikToker who posts her kind of recipes, her dishes that she cooks for her family. This TikToker is named Shaun, Shaun, and she's constantly cooking for her family. And she's like the main cook of her family, which I relate. I've been doing a lot of the cooking for my family these past like 3, 4 months. And so I really related to Shaun in that sense, also because we both kind of have critical moms. My mom, very thankfully, very gratefully, has lowered the level of criticisms that she gives me over the years, right? Especially as I've like talked her through it and things like that. And that's on being the family therapist. But no, it's my relationship with my mom is not this. It's different. However, my grandma, she's the most critical mom out of all the critical moms, you know what I'm saying? I really related to Shaun, and that's why her account really called to me. And that's why I decided to dedicate my very first podcast episode on Mayo Mom, because I was like, damn, I really relate to this account. But anyway, if you guys didn't know, or I guess you do know if you watched that episode, Shaun decided to come out with a cookbook, because everybody saw like her dishes, how amazing they looked, and they were like, hey, we need you to release a cookbook. So she released a cookbook. It's an ebook, so it's electronically, and I will leave the link for her cookbook in the show notes and in the description of the YouTube video, as always. I will also leave all the TikToks and everything that I reference in the show notes and the description, like always. But anyway, so on October 4th, which was over a month ago now, Shaun posted a TikTok saying POV Mayo Mom critiques your cookbook and like grimace emoji. I'll put it up on the screen here to cover my trash bag. um, Hey guys, so I actually decided to not play the TikTok because not only is Karen crying, but also Shaun decided not to add the settings to save it. So I'm actually just going to narrate what the captions are saying. So at the beginning it says POV Mayo Mom critiques your cookbook, and then Karen is kind of looking at it, studying it, flipping through the pages, and the caption on the screen says waiting for the endless critiques ... But then Karen says, well, first of all, I really think you did a very, very good job on oops, and she does something to the iPad, and she says, I don't know what I'm doing here on your cookbook. I love the pictures. I love the beginning, your little introductory page. And then that's when she starts crying, and Shaun on the screen says, then she randomly starts crying. I was so confused. And Shaun asks, why are you crying? And Karen says, I think putting yourself out there, and I mean this in all sincerity, I would have never done this. Never. At your age, I have always had this fearful part of my personality. And I kind of feel like that's held me back many, many, and too many times in my life. And on the screen, she says, I finally realized she was having a heart to heart with me. And then Karen continues saying, and quite honestly, Shaun, if you don't get one order for your cookbook, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. And that's what I want to say about your cookbook. I thought about that. I thought, like, in a way, I would come here and I'd be scrolling through and I'd go, haha, but I thought, no, I'm going to give you a real life. How proud I am of me, your mom, that you did this. And then Shaun says, give me a hug, and they hug. So obviously, they're going through something kind of very emotional, and I didn't want to play that. I didn't want to kind of add fuel to the fire or add hate to the fire towards Karen. She's obviously just, struggling with her insecurities, and I hope she deals with that, but I just don't want to add any more fuel to the fire, if that makes sense. So that's why I did not play the TikTok. I really want to be as respectful as I can to this situation. And so yeah, anyway, let's move on. Is that not a little bit surprising? I feel like when I first saw it, I was like, oh. And all the comments were surprised as well. The top comment says, okay, okay, okay. So she actually just hates flavor and doesn't hate you. Good to know. We were all worried for a minute. The next one says, Mayo mom's heart grew I can't speak. Mayo mom's heart grew 3 sizes that day with heart emojis. And the next one, this is the mom everyone wants to see. I can respect this version of Mayo mom. Congratulations on your cookbook. You deserve it. I can't save the video. It's okay. One other thing that I found out about Mayo mom is that her name is Karen. And it did feel a little bit disrespectful calling her just Mayo Mom. But like I said in the first episode, we didn't know what her name was, or at least not that I had seen. I hadn't come across any mention of her real name. So from now on, I'm just going to refer to her as Karen, because that is her name. I don't want to refer to her as Mayo Mom. Because I'm not her daughter, I can't be calling her Mayo Mom. You know what I mean? I know the internet calls her Mayo Mom, but I don't know, it just feels disrespectful to me, just a little bit, you know? Anyway, so in my opinion, I think this shows that Karen, like the top comment says, doesn't actually hate her daughter. And I think my opinion stands. I think a lot of her critiques very much so stem from jealousy. And she kind of says in the TikTok, like, at your age, I would have never done this. And that's not the first time she's said something like that. It's not the first time that she said, like, you know, at your age, I would have never done this. If you guys remember, one of the TikToks that we reacted to in the first podcast episode was another TikTok where Sean asks her, do you think my cooking is bad? Or do you think I'm a bad cook? Something along those lines. And Mayo Mom kind of was like, I'll tell you this. At your age, I would have never done what you're doing, right? I would have never been doing lobster boils. I would have never been doing ribs and pasta and stuff like that. And I think that shows that at one point in her life, she did, in fact, have dreams of her doing something bigger. And I'm thinking she had dreams of doing something similar to what her daughter is doing. And that's kind of what I said in my first episode is that when a parent sees their child doing something and achieving dreams that the parent could never even dream of doing, and when they see that that child is being successful in those dreams, feelings of jealousy are inevitable. The difference in how parents react to that jealousy is really all just in their personalities and their coping mechanisms. If you have healthy coping mechanisms, you can stop yourself from reacting, right? If you have a more reactive personality, you will do what Mayo Mom is doing to Sean. Or, sorry, what Karen is doing to Sean. And these feelings of jealousy kind of are only amplified when the child is accomplishing a dream and being successful in a dream that the parent previously had. And like Karen said in the TikTok, she was saying, like, I never really had the courage. Like, there was always something in my personality that made me too fearful of accomplishing this. And I think, me personally, I think that stems from her kind of feeling trapped in this role of being a mom, right? Of being the perfect mom, the perfect wife, kind of like what I was saying in the first podcast episode. I really think the expectations that were put on her as a child, and again, this is all assumptions. I don't actually have proof for this, but I think assuming that she had all these expectations put on her as a child, they didn't mix well with her personality type. And they created someone who was fearful, and they created a mom who took that fear and acted on that fear by trying to bring her daughter down with her, right? It was like if I couldn't do this, you can't do this either. You know what I mean? Which is unfortunately very common for a lot of parent child dynamics. We can see this whenever there's a case of child abuse, whenever a parent gets arrested for hitting their children too much. you will see all the other parents saying, well, my parent hit me and I'm going to continue to hit my children because that's what helped me. You know what I mean? And so it's a very common dynamic of I never got this, you're not going to get it either. In this case, it's I never got to accomplish my dreams. I'm going to make sure you never do it either. And there's obviously varying degrees of that kind of thing. I think Karen is a more mild case because at the end of the day, in the TikTok, she said, I am going to support you and I'm really proud of you, which is something that I can say my mom has never said to me. But yeah, so at the end of the day, Karen does want her child to succeed, but sometimes the feelings of fear and jealousy just get in the way. And that is something that needs to be addressed in therapy, family therapy. Go to therapy before you have kids, fix your issues up here. Make sure that you're giving the child that you birth the best version of you, please. But anyway, I personally still stand by what I said in the first podcast episode, which is that her daughter succeeding is stirring up feelings of jealousy, especially like I said in the first podcast episode, especially if the dad is, eating Karen's food and he's like, it's good, and then he eats Sean's food and it's like, wow, this is the best meal that I've ever had. Wow, this is amazing. You know what I mean? I think the whole family ideally should go to therapy so that they can have a safe space. And so more importantly, so that Karen can have a safe space to tell her husband, hey, I really don't like what you're doing. And so that Sean can have a safe space to tell her mom, hey, I really don't like when you shake me a lot, right? And then they can all learn from each other. They can hash out their feelings, and they can talk about certain things that each family member does that is kind of like, I really don't like when you do this. Please stop doing that, right? And together they can come up with coping mechanisms as a family to prevent hurt feelings, or if hurt feelings happen, to have some sort of way to communicate that without being accusatory, without bottling it up, without, any of the other bad stuff. Anyway, I wish the family the very best. I'm very happy for Sean that she released a cookbook, and I will say it is on my to be bought book list. I hope she releases a physical version so that I can, have it and feel like a grandma, flipping through her cookbook and like cooking up, you know what I mean? But yeah, I will leave it in the description in the show notes if you guys want to check it out, have a look at it, maybe buy it. I don't know. Anyway, now let's move on to the third episode of my podcast, which was a story that it was shared by u/artistic-minute-4365. It the original title was Am I the Asshole for Calling My Father a Weak, Pathetic Man in Front of His Family? So the final update was shared about a month ago, which was about the time that his original post was made. This was all kind of happening very quickly. And as you guys might know, if you watched the YouTube video and if you scroll down to the comments, this update came in right as I was making the thumbnail for the video, and I had already uploaded the video. I was waiting for it to be scheduled to go live, and I was just making the thumbnail, doing final changes. So you can find the link to the update in that video. But again, I will also link it in the show notes and the description of this YouTube video because I did not put it in Spotify. I'm sorry. I also did not put it on Apple Podcasts, which maybe I should fix that, but let's read the update. And guys, I'm very bad at reading, so bear with me here, especially since I'm out of breath because I'm very tired. I also forgot this OP makes a few typos here and there, so it's going to be extra hard to read it. I'm so sorry. Okay, so it says, I came to the decision that it was time to cut my father off for good. The more I learned about how he was, the more I came to the realization that nothing good would come out of having him in my life. I'm also going to put some minor distance between myself and extended family on his side until I can process things more. There's just a lot of things to work through here. I met up with my father one last time in a coffee shop to talk things over. I asked him one last time, why? Why did he do all this? Why did he let his wife treat everyone like shit? Why did he treat his family and me like shit for her? Why did he do all this? He tried to weasel his way out, but I absolutely demanded to know. And he basically answered that it was because he loved her. Yep, it was that stupid of an answer. He loved her and just clung on to her no matter what she did. No matter how much she hurt him or others, he was an insecure man who just latched himself on the first woman who showed him attention. Even when she slowly destroyed his life, he thought it was better than trying again. It's the sunk cost fallacy, which we'll be talking about in 2 episodes from now. And yeah, I feel really sad, but let's continue. I just got up and told him to fix his life, but I won't be a part of it. And I hope he has the sense to understand why. No matter how he tried to word it, I had 2 abusive parents. He didn't say anything, just stared at me. Which leads me to last night. I got a call from my grandparents that the night before, my dad tried to call his brothers and make peace. Unfortunately, from what they said, he did it in the most half-assed, avoidant way possible, sparing himself any guilt. That didn't go well. After recent events and old wounds being dug up, they gave him a verbal lashing that made mine look microscopic in comparison. My dad hung up and lost his shit, decimated his entire apartment before packing up what was left before driving off. They only found out because one of the brothers came to check up on him. From what they can tell from the few texts they have, he's lost his mind after decades of shit and is driving off to the other side of the country to start fresh. Also, from the minimum communication they have with him, he's acting incredibly vile towards them, and they say he seems to be acting just like my mother. Edit, things are progressing slash spiraling very quickly, and I am expecting this whole insanity parade to come to a conclusion within a few days at this rate. Won't make any real update until I have all the facts, but I'm just glad I made the decision to move on. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about with this update. Number one is that this is what happens when people are manipulated. It doesn't matter what age you're in, what age you are. When you get manipulated, you get manipulated, and it can be very, very easy for a manipulator to absolutely change the way that you see the world, to change the way that you see people that you used to love, to make you hate people that you used to love. It's very, very, very easy, and it's very scary as well. And not to get into this too much yet, but I noticed this kind of rhetoric being spread around when I uploaded my New Jeans podcast episode, which is the fact that there's this idea that at a certain age, you become too old to be manipulated. And at a certain age, you have to be aware of what you're doing and how that's wrong. But the thing I have to say with that is that manipulation can absolutely 100% and completely change your life and change your outlook on things. If you guys remember from the second update, OP said that his dad used to be an amazing guy. Everyone used to love him, but OP's mom was kind of his first love. And that opened the door for so many things to happen and for so many things to change in OP's dad's psyche. Manipulation can change the way that you apply empathy towards others. It can change the way that you react to certain situations. It can change the way that you behave around certain people that you used to be really comfortable and really close with. I brought up a very extreme kind of example in that the third podcast episode where I talk about this Reddit story, which is that some people, when they get manipulated, and specifically when they get groomed from a very young age, but again, you don't have to be any age to be manipulated or groomed. Let me backtrack. You don't have to be a certain age to be manipulated. You do kind of have to be a certain age to be groomed, but you get what I'm saying. I was talking about a very specific case that happened in Canada, I want to say, of this 12-year-old girl who was kind of going through puberty, and her emotions were changing. They were, she was getting mood swings, her hormones, her body was changing. But everyone in her family and everyone that interacted with her said that she was an amazing person, that she always put other people first. And it was when she got a new boyfriend a 20-something-year-old boyfriend, that she started changing and she started being rude to her parents, rude to her younger brother. She used to be an amazing older sister, but as soon as she got that boyfriend, her entire personality changed and she ended up killing her entire family, her younger brother included. And obviously, she went to jail, but she went to jail as a minor. She was tried as a minor, so she got released as soon as she turned 18. And that is kind of what I mean, is that as parents, you can do your darndest to instill amazing values into your kid, but it just takes them meeting the wrong person who will say the right things to them to change them completely and turn them into somebody that you don't even recognize as your own child. And there's a lot of times that parents sometimes wonder, like, how did this happen? I did not raise my child to be this way. And this is just outside of, you know, child criminals. And this is just including like every child that kind of changes, especially during puberty. I feel like they are at their most vulnerable state when they're in puberty, just because, like I said, their hormones are changing, there's mood swings, their body is changing, there's new insecurities being brought up that they never had before because their body is completely new. That is a really, really vulnerable time that a lot of groomers and manipulators take advantage of. And especially groomers and manipulators who want that sort of attention, who know that they can't get that sort of attention anywhere else. So they find a vulnerable person to get that kind of attention from. And that is ultimately what ended up happening with OP's dad, is that he was in a very vulnerable time of his life. And by vulnerable, I don't mean that he was being abused. I don't mean that he was being this and that. I mean, he was going through puberty and he was in high school. Everybody saw him as this amazing person, but it's likely that he had many vulnerabilities and many insecurities that his parents just weren't aware of, and that his future wife was able to exploit because she wanted attention. She wanted someone to be devoted to her. And when OP's dad realized that he had made a mistake by marrying her, he justified his decision in staying by saying, well, I can't rebuild my life anywhere else. And I think in that moment, he became someone who lacked situational awareness. Because it's like Opie said, I had two abusive parents, one who did most of the abuse and the other one who enabled it. And that is abuse in and of itself, right? If you're enabling abuse, you're kind of part of the abuse. And I think if in that moment, OP's dad had thought, it might be too late for me to move on, but it's not too late for my son to get out of this horrible nightmare that we're both living in, I think that would have changed a lot of things. And that's also kind of what I mean by manipulation changes you up as a person. Because OP's uncles and OP's grandparents are saying, your dad used to love everyone. He used to always put everybody else before him. But as soon as he met that one person who told him, you don't have to do this, he stopped being that caring and empathetic person and he became a horrible person. And yeah, I think we should be a little bit more understanding of people who have been manipulated. That doesn't mean that we should excuse people who have been manipulated, right? If they do something horrible, we do need to call them out on it and we do need to hold them accountable for that. I think saying things like, oh, you should have known better, it's just reductive and it doesn't help the conversation. It doesn't get to the bottom of what manipulators are able to exploit. Does that make sense? But anyway, those are all the updates for that specific story. I hope OP is able to go to therapy. Like he kind of said, he was already going to therapy. So actually, I hope that OP stays in therapy, and I hope OP's dad also goes to therapy. It's too late to mend the relationship, it looks like, but I think it's still worth it for OP's dad to go to therapy, and I hope he does. I really hope he does. But now let's move on to probably the biggest update of this entire thing. And if you guys saw my New Jeans video, you probably know that this is coming. Let me kind of recap just the tiniest bit. Again, We do not have all the facts yet. And again, this is even like a summary of the summary that I did in the second podcast episode. So if you want to see a more thorough summary, go to the second podcast episode. But if you want to see a more thorough, like deep dive of everything that's happening, that does not exist yet, to my knowledge. um, but if it does, please do let me know, and I will make sure to link and tag the creator. But anyway, New Jeans is a K-pop girl group that debuted in 2021, if I remember correctly. They were gathered and started training under Adore, which is a Hybe kind of sub label. Hybe is the big music label. It used to be Big Hit Entertainment, which was the label that BTS is under, but then it turned into Hybe. And Hybe's CEO is Bang Shi-hyuk. And Adore's CEO used to be Min Hee-jin. And those are the two biggest players aside from New Jeans. It's worth noting that at the time of debut, 4 out of 5 of the New Jeans members were minors. And to this day, some of them are still minors. I think it's like half and half. Half are adults, half are not minors. I'm not a fan of New Jeans, and the reason why I'm not a fan of New Jeans is because all of them are still not adults. I prefer to stan adult groups, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not well versed in New Jeans and their music and like their B-sides. I'm not well versed in the members or anything like that, but that is besides the point. So in 2024, actually, I think it might have been almost at the beginning of 2024, Min Hee-jin and Hybe started a legal battle where Hybe claimed that Min Hee-jin was trying to sell New Jeans to other companies, competing companies, whereas Min Hee-jin was claiming that Hybe was not treating the New Jeans girls well and that they needed an investigation done into them, right? The Korean courts ruled against Hybe. They said that there was no evidence that Min Hee-jin was trying to sabotage Hybe by trying to sell New Jeans to somebody else. And it was kind of left at that for a little bit. And then we started noticing, as kind of just K-pop fans in general, started noticing that New Jeans was kind of being mistreated by Hybe. And a lot of people thought that that was because of. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself actually. So, in the lawsuit that Min Hee-jin did against Hybe, she also mentioned Le Seraphim and Islet, which are two other girl groups. Islet is full of minors as well. It's kind of actually pretty similar. I think two of them are adults at the moment, but the other three are minors. And there's 5. And Le Seraphim also has 5 members, but at the time of debut, I think 2 were minors and the rest were adults. Now 4 of them are adults and 1 is still a minor, but so the basis of Min Hee-jin's legal lawsuit was that Hybe made Islet and Le Seraphim as copies of New Jeans. Now, it's important to note that Le Seraphim debuted before New Jeans, so, but what Min Hee-jin was claiming was that Hybe and Source Music, which is the sub-label that Le Seraphim is under, and I think B-Lift Labs is the label that Islet is under. She was claiming that those labels were trying to make Le Seraphim and Islet the new version of New Jeans, or trying to take New Jeans concept and trying to implement it into those separate groups. Now, if you guys are not into K-pop and you guys don't know what it is that she's kind of saying, like, you're probably thinking, oh, music is just music. You can't really take anything. You can't really steal music ideas, whatever. K-pop has what is called, or what are known as concepts. And every group has a concept. So, for example, Blackpink has the girl crush concept. Dreamcatcher has the nightmare concept. Oh, aespa has an AI concept, right? And so every group has a concept, and they tend to stick to a certain sound for that concept to try and fit into that concept. Some K-pop groups will experiment a little bit more, but those groups tend to get a lot of hate in Korea just because a lot of Korean K-pop listeners like that their groups stick to certain concepts, if that makes sense. So, concepts are a very important thing, and with the concept comes the very distinct sound that each group has. And this sound is kind of what identifies the group. Just because the K pop market is so saturated, it kind of gets difficult to differentiate which group is which. So for example, if you heard a Dreamcatcher song and then you heard a Blackpink song, you would know that one song was a Dreamcatcher song and the other song was a Blackpink song because of their very distinct sounds and their very distinct concepts. Dreamcatcher has a very rock slash metal sound, whereas Blackpink has more of your hip hop slash pop sound, if that makes sense. And if you compare that to aespa's sound, which is a more AI sound, I shouldn't say AI sound, but they have a more kind of techno electro pop vibe going to them. You can tell that that is aespa. Does that make sense? So concepts are very, very important in the K-pop industry. And what Minhyejin was claiming is that Isla and the Seraphim were kind of stealing New Jeans' sounds. And a lot of netizens kind of agreed with this because I'm out of breath. A lot of netizens agreed with this claim because Islet's debut song sounded like a New Jeans reject song. I wish I could play the songs for you guys here, but I cannot, otherwise I will get copyrighted. But just search up New Jeans Super Shy and then search up Islet Magnetic and Islet ILLIT. And they kind of sound like they would have come from the same group. The Seraphim also had a song called Perfect Night that also sounded like it would have come from New Jeans, and that's kind of what Minhyejin was claiming. She also was claiming that Eyelid stole a lot of choreography movements from New Jeans. Now, this is a thing that a lot of netizens were divided on. Some netizens were saying, yeah, Eyelid's debut choreography looked a lot like something that New Jeans would do. Some people were claiming you can't really steal choreography movements because it's just dancing, right? There's a lot of repetitive movements in K-pop, even across all of the genres that exist within K-pop. Like, for example, I was giving the example that if you listen to a Dreamcatcher song and then you listen to a Blackpink song, they will sound very, very different. But if you look at a Dreamcatcher choreography and then compare it to Blackpink choreography, you will see some movements that are very similar. And this is because I used to be a dancer myself, so I can speak to this. But often like transition movements, when you're moving from one step to the next, or when you're switching positions or anything like that, they can be very generic, right? So you can't really have a say on what is copying choreography versus what isn't copying choreography. However, Korean courts ruled in Minhyejin's favor, saying that, yeah, in fact, Islet was stealing choreography from New Jeans. And I think they based this off of the fact that it was many movements in Islet's debut choreography that were taken from one specific New Jeans song, if that makes sense. So Korean courts ruled against Hybe and ruled in Minhyejin's favor. And like I said, it was kind of left at that for a good while, except for a few months ago. I want to say like a month and a half ago, New Jeans themselves came out with a live stream saying that they were being mistreated by Hybe staff. And Hani, specifically, one of the New Jeans members, stated that she was trying to greet a group. She did not say which group. She was trying to greet a group from the Hybe label. She was getting out of doing her makeup done, and this group was coming in to get their makeup done. And she greeted them, they greeted her back, but then she heard their manager saying, ignore her. And, you know, that was kind of the beginning of everything. And when Honey said this, a lot of people came out and said, well, ignore her and 2 p.m. sound very similar in Korean. And since Honey is a foreigner and she has had to learn Korean kind of on her own, maybe she misunderstood. Maybe he was saying, guys, you have until 2 p.m. Or guys, it's 2 p.m., right? And it sounded like ignore her. However, I said in my or in my second podcast episode, sometimes it's not just about like what you hear, it's also about what you see. So, for example, if Honey heard ignore her. She could have had plausible deniability. She could have thought, maybe he said something else and I just don't know what it is. However, if she saw the movement of Eyelet and if the Eyelet members looked like, oh, okay. And I say Eyelet because Hybe later came out themselves and said, yeah, we investigated. It was Eyelet that she was trying to greet. They also came out and said that Honey couldn't identify the manager, which a lot of netizens found to be indicative of Honey lying. However, I personally believe her, and I'll kind of get into why, but even when I made that podcast episode, I believed her. I think it's something, like I said in that podcast episode, you don't just hear something, you also see kind of what's happening. And if the Eyelet members were like, hi, oh my God, hi, and bowing and everything like that, and their manager said, ignore her, they would be like, oh, okay. There would be something in their body language. Whereas if he said like 2 p.m., they'd be like, okay, anyway, honey, hi, how are you? You know what I mean? And so because of this live stream and because of what Honey said, the National Assembly of Korea invited her to speak about workplace harassment and bullying. And at the time that this was announced, a lot of netizens, because they were doing a hate train against New Jeans, a lot of netizens were saying, oh, what does she know about workplace harassment? What does she know about workplace bullying, right? Because of the legal battle that Hybe and Manheejin had, a lot of New Jeans hardcore stans started attacking Islet and LE SSERAFIM, and even BTS, which BTS kind of had nothing to do with this until New Jeans released a live stream in which Jungkook then posted a picture saying young artists should be protected, and he put heart emojis, 5 heart emojis, and each heart emoji represented the color of each New Jeans member. And New Jeans has like a very specific kind of Powerpuff Girls concept, teenage vibe kind of concept, and so they do have assigned colors. Every K-pop group kind of has an assigned thing. Some K-pop groups will have an assigned animal for each member. For example, Dreamcatcher, like Seoyeon from Dreamcatcher, her animal is wolf. Dami from Dreamcatcher, her animal is panda. So New Jeans instead had colors assigned to them. And so Jungkook put a heart emoji of every one of New Jeans' colors. And that is the one time that BTS was kind of more directly involved. I think BTS might have been mentioned in Manheejin's lawsuit against Hybe, but I'm not quite certain on that. Again, had just been getting my news from TikTok update accounts. So I'm not well versed on this. And again, I don't think there's a deep dive on this entire situation yet, just because we don't have all the facts yet. They're coming in very, very slowly. But anyway, back to the National Assembly of Korea. So a lot of netizens were kind of making fun of Hani, being like, what does she know? Like, she participated in the hate train against Islet and LE SSERAFIM and BTS. That's what a lot of netizens were saying, because when Minheejin mentioned Islet, LE SSERAFIM, and maybe BTS, a lot of hardcore New Jeans stans were attacking these groups and saying, you guys suck, you're trying to copy New Jeans, you will never be New Jeans. In a LE SSERAFIM fan meeting, somebody dressed up as Minheejin went over to the LE SSERAFIM fan meeting. And so it just goes to show that they were getting a lot of hate because they were being mentioned in this lawsuit. However, it's important to note that not every New Jeans fan was attacking these groups. It was just the hardcore ride or die fans. And someone in my comments actually said that it was male fans and it wasn't actually like the female fan base, which is another issue in and of itself. And I don't know if that's true. Again, I'm not in the fan base because I would like for them to be adults before I start listening to their music. I would like for all of them to be adults, right? So yeah, I don't know how true that is, but that kind of tracks. It does. Male fans, especially from what I've heard, Korean male fans of young K-pop girl groups, and by young K-pop girl groups, I mean girl groups with members that are young, tend to be very toxic, right? So I personally believe that, but I don't know how true that is because again, I'm not in the fan base. But yeah, so Islet Serve and they're getting a ton of hate, and a lot of people are saying it should have been Islet or LE SSERAFIM going to the National Assembly, but because it was Honey that shared that story of the manager telling Islet to ignore her, I guess the National Assembly of Korea invited her to speak, right? So she speaks, she advocates for all of HYBE groups. She's advocating for everyone. And in the live stream, they say there are a lot of things, a lot of nonsensical things that are happening that you guys wouldn't even believe because they are so ridiculous, but they are happening. So at the National Assembly, Honey says, it doesn't matter if they're younger than us, it doesn't matter if they're older than us. We are here to speak for them and talk about their bullying and workplace harassment that they are having. It's also important to note that before all of this started happening, Islet and New Jeans were like Islet New Jeans members were friendly and New Jeans and the Seraphim members were friends. I don't know how that is afterwards. I don't know if it's like Hive managers preventing them from interacting, but that's private business. But the point is that they were friendly before all of this started happening. And so it makes sense in my mind that Honey would stand up and speak for all of them, right? Because all of them were getting hated on. A lot of it from the public, and she knew something that we didn't, which is that every Hybe group was getting hated on by Hybe staff. As the public, we kind of figured this out because leaked messages of Hybe staff talking shit about Jungkook and New Jeans were leaked. So we knew that they were talking shit about their own groups, but we did not know the extent of it until probably just a week ago. This is so new and it is so dumb. So dumb. So, the National Assembly of Korea invited Bang Si-hyuk, the CEO of HYBE, to speak there, but instead they sent the CEO of Lift Labs to speak and to talk about what the National Assembly of Korea found during the audit that they performed on HYBE. Guys, it was not good. It was not good. At first, when the news came out, when the news was freshly released, people were saying, oh, they're just collecting comments from around the internet and compiling them to see how their groups are performing. Obviously, some of those comments are going to be negative, some of those comments are going to be positive, but they're just collecting comments from all around the internet, right? That's what HYBE stands, which is so ridiculous to me. It's so ridiculous to me that a company has fans that are willing to back them. It's so wrong to me. But HYBE stands were saying, no, guys, HYBE is not psychotic. They're just collecting opinions on their groups from around the internet. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. They want to see kind of like. But then I saw actual clips of the National Assembly in Korea, and this is where I have to show you guys. I'm going to translate for you guys just because obviously this is the National Assembly of Korea, they're speaking Korean, but there is translation on screen, so if you're watching, you can read the translation, but if you're listening, obviously you can't. So the caption on the TikTok says, Blift CEO and Hybe COO. So he is both the CEO of Blift Labs and the COO of Hybe, getting cooked by the National Assembly for insulting and degrading K-pop groups in their internal reports. The bottom caption says there's 3,000 pages of offensive reports. Hybe employees insulting groups, including minors, as a common company practice. And then what the guy is saying is, does this internal report contain Hybe's opinion or not? And then the Blift CEO says, of course the document does. He says, it's in there, right? There are some opinions going around. And the assembly person is saying, no, not indirectly. Not quoted, meaning not from the internet, but directly from Hive. And he points to the big ass stack of papers that he has right next to him. And he pulls some papers out and says, want me to read them out loud? And the Blift CEO stays silent. The assembly guy says there are such extreme contents about the artists, so severe that we wonder how could they do such a thing. So we are not making everything public. But you keep claiming we just collected outside opinions, when in fact Hyde's opinions are in this report. Are you aware that this report contains content related to minors? Are you aware that this report contains content related to a group made up of minors? The Hyde COO says, I don't recall that specific content in the document. And then the assembly person says, but this is an internal report, correct? And the BLIF CEO says, we produce and review a lot of monitoring materials like this. And again, he uses the word monitoring as in implying that they are just comments from the internet. And then the assembly guy says, didn't Bang Shi-hyuk or Bang PD, which is the Hybe CEO, tell the editor-in-chief to write this and report it to him? So he's asking, like, didn't Bang Shi-hyuk order this to happen? And the BLIF CEO says, that's not my jurisdiction. So it's difficult to tell you the exact details. And then the assembly person says, that's why I called Bang Shi-hyuk to the stand. But you said you will come out instead. Hey guys, just popping in here just to say that I'm going to play the entire TikTok in its entirety on the screen, and then that way if you are watching in video format you can look at the captions that I was reading, but if you also understand / speak Korean and you're listening, you can also listen to the entire video in its entirety.
하이브의 의견이 평가가 여기 안에 들어있습니까? 없습니까?
당연히 그 문서에는
들어있죠?
어떤 의견들이 이렇게 돌아다니고 있다 혹은 이런 의견이
아니, 간접적으로 전언이 아니고 인용이 아니고 하이브가 여기 평가한 거 읽어드려요? 읽어드릴까요? 아티스트들에 대한 정보가 정말 저희가 보기에는 어떻게 이렇게 할 수 있지 싶을 만큼 한 내용들이 있어서 공개를 안 하고 있는 거예요, 지금. 그런데 자꾸 우리는 이런 거 그냥 돌아다니는 의견만 주워 모았다. 아니고 하이브의 의견이 여기에 다수 들어있어서 다 이 임원용 보고서에 지금 이것들이 다 미성년자로 구성된 그룹에 대한 거라는 건 알고 계신가요?
지금 말씀해 주신 저 문서 내용을 제가 기억하고 있지는 못하는데요.
내부 보고서 맞는데요?
저희가 저런 모니터링 자료들을 많이 만들고 있고 많이 검토하고 있기 때문에
강시혁 회장이 이거 편집장한테 작성해서 보고하라고 한 거 아니에요?
제가 그 부분을 담당하고 있지 않아서 정확한 내용을 말씀드리기는 좀 어려울 것 같습니다.
그래서 방시혁 회장을 나오라 그랬더니 대신 나와서 하겠다고 나온 거 아니에요?
And obviously the BLIF CEO stays quiet. So now let's take a look at what some of the things mentioned in the report. So about new jeans, they say with new jeans, Eyelet and Seraphim, the phrase new ILE from Hybe has started appearing in the community, and there has been a slight increase of mentions of Eyelet. If Eyelet starts using virtual characters on YouTube, this team could become the channel that connects to the OSB universe. I'm not sure what the OSB universe is, but I'm picturing something similar to like the SM kind of cinematic or culture universe, which is kind of connected to the aespa lore, which again, a lot of K-pop groups have lore attached to them, and this became a lot more popular to do when aespa came out with their AI concept and their lore that they are from a different planet and they are AI beings, and they have this being that they answer to named Navis, and then they escape their home planet because of the Black Mamba, and they get onto Earth. They kind of start messing things up. They're a supernova on Earth, and the Armageddon starts happening, right? aespa made it a lot more popular in the newer groups that are coming out. It was popular in the past for groups to have lore. Like I said, Dreamcatcher, their lore is that they are the nightmare concept. So each individual member stands for a different kind of nightmare that people tend to have, and a lot of their songs have lore that kind of connects to those different kinds of nightmares and more like darker, edgier concepts, that kind of thing. So lore in groups is not abnormal, but it definitely became more popular, in my opinion, when aespa really committed to their lore, because a lot of groups will not commit to the lore like aespa is doing, but aespa committed to the lore, okay? So I'm assuming that's what OSB Universe is. But anyway, they say in this era of girl groups selling over 1 million copies, I think it's necessary to categorize Blackpink, LE SSERAFIM, aespa, and IVE differently from the fourth generation movement. I've been struggling with the New Jeans wording for days, but it would be easier to just drop new and create something new. And then here's kind of a timeline that was found in the internal documents. So for May to July 2023, that was when they started their plan to abandon New Jeans and start a new one. In July to August 2023, New Jeans were planned to be delivered to other labels. April 2024, Manheejin complained about the copy. And then in late April, Hybe started making this issue public to mess with New Jeans. And then there's screenshots of the live stream where Nugent says, although we can't talk about everything due to contractual reasons, there are so many absurd and incomprehensible things that you all don't know about. Then the industry trend review material for Hybe executives revealed by National Assembly was filled with bashing contents towards many artists. There was a bashing comment about Baby Monster, which is another group made up of minors. I think there's like 1 or 2 adults, but the rest of the 7 members are minors. So again, I do not listen to their music. Their music sounds kind of shit, I'm not gonna lie. It's just not my taste. So I even if they become adults, I don't think I will listen to their music. However, Hybe says perhaps because of the talk about Hybe's new team at Are You Next, which is the competition that Islet kind of was chosen from. Information about SM's new girl group suddenly started spreading. About 8 candidates have been shortlisted, but surprisingly, none of them are pretty. I wondered if their training infrastructure was even worse than baby monsters, and the word baby monsters is kind of blocked out, but you can kind of tell it says baby monsters, and at the bottom of the picture that I'm reading it says baby monsters. But considering that everyone was shocked by the looks when aespa, again aespa is redacted, but you can tell that it says aespa, debuted, it makes me wonder if SN's aesthetic sense itself has changed. And about Blackpink and Twice, this is very shocking. As a blink, this is very shocking. They said, above all, LE SSERAFIM has now established significant trust regarding their performances. They are in a position to scale up their tour and compete with boy groups. Blackpink targeted Coachella and has had many interactions with overseas celebrities, but there was an issue with not operating the team effectively, which is an insane thing to say about Blackpink because they are the biggest girl group in the world, defeating Little Mix by a landslide, which is a heartbreaking thing to say as a mixer as well. But I'm not gonna pit 2 girl groups against each other. I'm just saying they are the biggest girl group for a reason, you know what I mean? Twice has solidified their teamwork and it's holding stadium concerts, but this situation is too loose in terms of gaining attention, which is again another wild thing to say as Twice is very popular overseas and in Korea. If LE SSERAFIM combines the strength of both, I believe it's quite possible for them to fill the void left by major girl groups. Now, I'm not sure if this is referring to filling the void of major girl groups when Blackpink and Twice inevitably disband, because they've been in the industry for quite some time now. Almost 10 years, both groups, like, respect. I think Twice has been in the industry a little bit longer, or maybe a little bit shorter. I can't quite remember. I think shorter because I remember them getting hate for trying to be the next Blackpink or whatever. But yeah, they've both been in the industry for quite a long time. So I'm not sure if this is referring to like when they disband, maybe LE SSERAFIM can take their crown, or I'm not sure if this is referring to like they lack something right now and LE SSERAFIM does not lack anything, which is also a wild thing to say because LE SSERAFIM was getting hated on for their vocals. What in the world? Another thumbs up. I need to turn my reactive thingies on if you guys are watching on video. I'm so sorry. But anyway, about BTS and Jungkook. BTS's Jungkook and Jimin. They say the main point of the complaint is that the company is responding passively to the evil that is DC. I don't know what DC is. I personally recognize DC as Dreamcatcher, but I don't know what Dreamcatcher has to do with any of this. So I don't think it's Dreamcatcher, but DC. There were also negative reactions questioning how Hype could possibly steal user information when the country can't even shut down a gallery. It seems there's some shared resentment among the fans towards the Jimin fandom, and for now it's the company's responsibility to manage this delicately to prevent it from escalating so far that people will reject the artist. The almost sole issue related to Jungkook is his military enlistment. Since the showcase, fans' desire for a tour has significantly increased. But if a decision for early enlistment is made, it will likely lead to major rise in internal fandom disputes about the sacrifice of the Maknae. Which is so funny. The sacrifice of the Maknae. If you guys don't know, Maknae is the youngest member of a K-pop group, or the youngest member in any kind of group. Youngest member in a friend group, youngest member in the family, youngest member in a K-pop group. You know, it just means the youngest at any present moment in time. About Stray Kids, NMIXX, and NCT Dream. I'm not sure which of these groups are Hybe, but obviously BTS is under Hybe, LE SSERAFIM's under Hybe, New Jeans is under Hybe, Isla is under Hybe. But I don't know if Stray Kids is under Hybe. I don't know if NCT Dream is under Hybe. I know NMIXX is under JYP, which is a separate. Guys, I'm a girl group stan. I don't know anything about boy groups. I'm so sorry. Anyway, they say the physical difference is quite painful to see it. When I think of Stray Kids comeback, or sorry, Stray Kids Changbin, who was almost the same height during the NMIXX challenge, it makes me even sadder. It's especially hard because Changbin is friends with NMIXX, and seeing them together in the camera makes my heart ache even more, which is fucking crazy. If you're not understanding kind of what they're saying that a member of Stray Kids, a man's height being the same as members of a girl group is sad, which is kind of insane to me. But then they say, of course, performing on stage and hosting well is important, but Yeonjun, I think it just says YJ, so I don't know who this is referring to. Again, I'm not a boy group stan. I don't know the names of every boy group member. I'm more familiar with girl group members. But YJ just standing there holds significance. It just so happened that the interview team included NCT. I can't read. It just so happened that the interview team included NCT Dream and Stray Kids, and both groups were physically overshadowed by YJ. I think it's Yeonjin, but again, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I don't know any. The only member with YJ in their name that comes to mind is Yeonjun, but I don't know what group he's in because I'm a girl group stan. I'm so sorry. And both groups were physically overshadowed by YJ, both groups being NCT Dream and Stray Kids, from what I'm understanding. To the point that it felt almost uncomfortable to watch. SB, I don't know who SB is already recognized for his height, and his character image has a gentle and clumsy vibe, so it didn't feel too out of place. But when YG stands next to Changbin, the difference is quite noticeable. On Sunday, I suddenly saw on Instas that TH's snake controversy was brought up again, and I was wondering what happened. It seems that someone who watched Inkigayo was triggered by a button press from TXT, which is Tomorrow by Together. Okay, and then about JYP artist, Hybe says, not only that, former members of JYP girl groups such as Hyuna and Sunmi, who escaped from Wonder Girls, I think it's the girl group. I don't, but Hyuna and Sunmi were both in a girl group, and they escaped from said girl group, were said to have undergone so much plastic surgery that they are almost unrecognizable. The strong traces of being exposed to an environment where it's nearly impossible to mentally cope for a long period are too evident, especially when it comes to appearance and sexual appeal in that regard. It seems like similar signs are showing in Yuna as well. And Yuna is part of JYP's ITZY. So, and again, the names of the members are censored. That's why I don't remember what I think it's Wonder Girls, but that was before I joined K-pop, so I'm not too sure. I'm so sorry. Okay, and then about ESPA and SM's new girl group trainees, they say debuted the members when they were at their most awkward looking, so none of them have idol-like features, dot dot dot, and they admitted the rest. The plastic surgery was too much. They were noticeably focusing on looks and sex appeal. I think these are comments that were collected because they're indifferent. So these are comments. I don't know about the rest. The rest was not in like separated. It was more paragraphs and sounded more like somebody reviewing like this is what I think is happening, right? The other one sounded more like Hive staff typing up what they thought, and these look more like comments that were gathered by Hive. So first comment says they debuted the members when they were at their most awkward looking. Second comment says the plastic surgery was too much. Third comment says they are noticeably focusing on looks and sexual appeal. Fourth comment says surprisingly none of them are pretty. And then the next comment says, when Espa debuted, everyone was shocked by their appearance, which makes me wonder if SM's aesthetic standards have changed. Again, I'm so sorry. I can't read. And then I think another comment says, this came out during today's national audit. Ha 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 ha. Ah ha 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 ha. I effing love Espa. Ha ha. Now I understand why they are so desperate to take over SM. Ha ha ha. How did they manage to hold back their jealousy after Supernova was a huge hit? Ha 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 ha. With Whiplash also being another hit, they probably can't sleep from the pain. Ha ha. Let's make Espa even more successful. Ha ha ha. And again, that all was in two paragraphs, so not separate comments. And I said on my TikTok, I think this is Hybe talking about New Jeans when they say, like, how did they manage to hold back their jealousy? I think the they in question is referring to New Jeans, but again, I don't know. This isn't clear. This is just what is presented. In my own personal opinion, I think the they in question is New Jeans. And again, I said on my TikTok, it's kind of weird that Hybe wants a girl group from a competing company to do better. Let's make aespa more successful. Why? Because they want to make New Jeans jealous. Except for they don't know that aespa and New Jeans are besties. And then they talk about Sunghoon. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but basically it's an idol from a boy group, Rise, who was kicked out of the group because it was found out that he was this was so horrible, you guys. It was found out that he was dating before he debuted. Rise used to be a 7 member group, and when he got kicked out, it became a 6 member group, and fans were sending funeral wreaths to the building of the company SM, if I recall correctly, because they wanted him out because he had the audacity to date before he even debuted, before he was even an idol. He broke up with his girlfriend before he became an idol, but they wanted him out. You know what I'm saying? And so they talk about that. I'm not going to go through that because I thought this was going to be a very short update video, but it turns out to be very long. They talk about 17. Again, I don't know what company 17 is under, but then the last slide is, and Hype just looks like an inhumane company, which is from the New Jeans live stream. And girl, I agree. I agree. There's another TikTok that I will obviously have linked in the show notes and the description where they kind of talk about all Yeonjun. It was Yeonjun from Stray Kids. Oh, Yeonjun from TXT, I'm sorry. But yeah, again, I will have all this linked in the description. It has also come out in recent days that they are also talking badly about the Saracens' vocals. Now, again, it's not quite certain what is Hybe's staff and their opinions versus what is the comments, right? Some are more obviously comments, some are less obviously so. So I don't know what was said by Hybe employees and what was said by fans on the internet that was kind of collected and gathered by Hybe. But again, we know that they did both. We know that they talked badly about their own groups and other groups, and we also know that they collected comments from netizens that were also talking badly about their own groups and other companies' groups. How do we feel after that update? I feel more out of breath than anything, I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, as you guys can hear, my voice is cutting out. However, we're still not done. We're still not done. This is gonna take me so long to edit. Oh my goodness. But okay. The update is that Honey from New Jeans was right. There was a lot of workplace harassment, a lot of workplace bullying at the hands of Hybe staff. And I also want to bring to attention that this is not an unusual thing to happen in K-pop. If you guys don't know, you guys probably know the group 21. They are also a K-pop group, and they are under the company YG. YG himself, directly to their face, told members of 21 that they were ugly without makeup. And that led to a lot of insecurities, a lot of the members doing more plastic surgery than they needed to. I mean, frankly, no plastic surgery is needed, but you know what I mean. Like, they got to the point where they looked unrecognizable, and it's a very, very sad case. But yeah, so other companies are not immune to doing this kind of thing. But my point here is that New Jeans was right, and I hate that a lot of people made fun of them because they sided with Minheejin. But it's like I said in the first episode where I mentioned this, which was the second episode on my podcast, is that I personally don't blame New Jeans for siding with Minheejin because look at their options. Okay, look at their options. Look at them closely. Minhee Jin, yes, she has a lot of sexual allegations and sexual misconduct allegations behind her, and I don't want you guys to ignore that. I don't want you guys to ignore Minhee Jin being a horrible person, but I also need you to look at what the New Jeans members are dealing with. They are dealing with a company that prefers to talk badly about them and that prefers to have aespa, a girl group from a competing company, do better than New Jeans just to make New Jeans jealous and just to spite New Jeans. That's their situation on one hand. On the other hand, they have a woman who may or may not, in their opinions, may or may not have done these sexual misconduct things, but she treats them well. She treats them better. She talks to them. She listens to them. And this is what I'm saying, like, again, not to excuse Minhee behavior, but this is why I said in my first episode, where I talked about the second episode where I first talked about this, is that groomers will often look for vulnerable people. Manipulators will often look for vulnerable people, and unfortunately, the conditions at Hybe were so bad for New Jeans that Minhee ended up being their savior, ended up looking at these very vulnerable girls and being and cementing herself as a sort of savior for them. And the New Jeans girls' parents are only listening to what their daughters are saying. Their daughters are only telling them, people at Hive are mean to us, but Minhee is so nice to us. And even though messages have been leaked where Minhee is talking very badly about the New Jeans girls have forgiven them because it's kind of standard for idols to get fat shamed and be told, but I'm only doing it for your health, right? It's a normal thing in the K-pop industry and even in music industries all around the world, right? You get fat shamed, you get told that you're ugly, and then you get told, but I'm only doing it for the greater good. I'm only telling you for your own health. I'm only telling you because it benefits you. And I think those conditions and that setting has only made it so that Minhee can have more control mentally over the New Jeans girls. And this is why I said in the second episode where I first talked about New Jeans, is that it's important for Hive staff to stop doing this. It's important for Hive staff to stop having beef with literal teenagers. And it's important for them to get the New Jeans girls therapy and for them to listen to what New Jeans members are saying and for them to be treated better than how they're being treated. I know I said in the second part of this podcast episode that sometimes you can give your child the best, absolutely most amazing conditions to grow up in, but a manipulator will still find a way to manipulate. But sometimes your child puts themselves in vulnerable positions, and that is when manipulators strike. Unfortunately, New Jeans are in a vulnerable position right now where they feel like everyone has turned their backs on them except for Minhee and except for aespa. But yeah, this is why this kind of stuff needs to stop happening in the K-pop industry, and I hope that New Jeans live stream has encouraged other idols to speak up about their mistreatment as well. Actually, recently there was another case of K-pop idol mistreatment where young boys, young hopeful boys, went into a competition. It's kind of like a reality show competition, kind of think The only thing I can think of is La Academia from Mexican TV. I can't think of a US equivalent, but it's basically where people go in, they train to become K-pop idols, but at the same time they're in a competition and you have to have the best vocals, you have to have the best dance movements, you have to be really, really strong in order to win the competition. When you win the competition, you get put into, like, automatically you get put into a group. Typically, those group contracts last for 2 years before you get scouted by other companies. So, similar thing happened with IZ*ONE and Islet as well. Islet was formed through that kind of show. But anyway, the scandal was that the judges were making these young boys who were so full of hope and dreams to become K-pop idols. They were forcing those young boys to dance for 30 minutes straight, almost no breaks. And at the end, one of the contestants broke and was like, I don't understand why you guys are making us dance so much. This is very unfair. Some of us are passing out. Some of us need to go to the hospital. And one of the judges told him to shut up, sit down, and told him being a K-pop idol means you will have to dance a lot more for a lot longer and with a lot less breaks. So shut up and dance is pretty much the message that he gave the K-pop idol, and obviously fans are up in arms. I'm upset because one of IZ*ONE's members, and again, IZ*ONE was formed through this kind of reality competition show where trainees are just kind of forced to work their ass off to debut. But one of the IZ*ONE members, Kwon Eunbi, she was a judge and she did not stop this. She actually was kind of surprised that the young boy, I think they're called trainees, that the trainee even spoke up, which is kind of ridiculous to me, in my opinion. And I'm so upset because I really liked her music, but you know, it is what it is. And so this kind of mistreatment is not an abnormal thing, but I'm really glad that New Jeans spoke, and I really hope that after New Jeans speaking and after all of this coming out, that things change for the better. But anyway, so those are, I only have 2 pages of notes. That's why I thought this was only going to be a 20-minute update video, but as it turns out, it is not a 20-minute update video, and it's actually way past my bedtime. But I did just want to let you guys know that I was actually planning on releasing a vlog series about how you can get involved with your community, and that will be coming out on my vlog channel. It'll be coming out for 2025, so look forward to that. I will leave my, actually, I will leave my vlog channel linked in the show notes and in the description in case you want to check it out when it goes live. And of course, I will keep you guys updated. But anyway, that is it for this podcast episode update thing. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this goes up on time because it's actually Wednesday when I'm filming this, and it needs to go up in less than 48 hours. So wish me luck. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next podcast episode. Again, I will have everything linked in the show notes and in the description, all of the TikToks that I referenced. And yeah, I will try and get the TikToks that I played on the screen, but 2 of them I could not save, and those were the only 2 that I checked. So I'm not sure. I will try to play the Sean Saber Kitchen one because I think that one's important to the update. So I'm sorry, Sean. I'm sorry you don't want people to save your TikToks, but I still want to show the people kind of what I was talking about, especially because I had my TikTok on mute when I played it. So, but anyway, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I was watching or listening, and I will see you guys in the next podcast episode. Bye.